course they don't know what you want. They're, and they're like, well, but they've run a program before, or she ran her own program, or she came up through this program or that program. It's like, but that's not your program, and they're not necessarily going to, know how you want things done. Like most people don't even have a binder of SOPs that they could go find in the office if they were trying to look for those sorts of things. So,
They are all existing, and that one I work for everybody to access all the time. When I work sucks. Okay.
So, I think it's really important to get that training program in place, and it's going to constantly be a living, breathing thing. It's not like, okay, I'm done, let me walk away. But one of my proudest moments as a business coach was when I had a client who I was working with, and she was kind of just getting started and kind of been running things, one way, and it was like, oh, that's not going to work for you long term. And she was making changes, and she had kind of, for whatever reason, basically was rehiring her whole staff. And so she got this stall cleaner, horse handler type person in place. And I was like, okay, how's that hire going? How are we doing? And she was like, oh, she's really getting it, like I've been really happy with her. Like I gave her the SOPs, like she's really following it. And then a couple weeks later, she told me, she said, oh, I had to go into her house to repair something, don't worry, I had permission. She goes, but I looked at the refrigerator and there was the SOP about feeding along with the map of how we feed the horses in what direction. And I was like, thank you. Here's someone who did this, who gave the staff member the tools they need. The staff member appreciated it, obviously, took it to heart, put it on their refrigerator where they're going to see it every day. And she didn't have problems with that person doing the tasks they were supposed to do. And, some people, when I say, oh, that's a good idea, really push back. Well, I don't need to tell them how to do their job that much, And it's like, well, you kind of do. Like when I was at the university, we had horses in stalls and we had horses in pastures. And so the horses, all the university lesson horses were in pasture. And so part of our feeding plan for those horses was they get fed first in the morning so they can eat before they go out to lessons, and they get fed last at night so that they can eat after they come in from any lessons. And, it's not the one who's not working who's getting to eat for however many horses are out in the pasture. So, it may feel like, oh my God, I'm really like overstepping and telling someone else how to do their job. But when you're first hiring somebody into a position, you should have that level of detail, unless it's a brand new something that you're doing and you're kind of muddling through it together. And then what you want to do, and this is like step number 3 in employees, right, is it's super important to keep open lines of communication. And Brian says this a lot, and I know I say this a lot on coaching calls, is you need to meet with your staff regularly so that every time you meet with your staff, they're not thinking they're getting fired or getting called to the principal's office, right? Mm-hmm. Because how many of us have worked for somebody who the only time they say, hey, can you come in and talk to me, is when you've fucked up, right? Like, and you're racking your brain going like, oh my God, what did I do? Right? Like, what happened? Who complained? Who, like, what went wrong? And you're, and it's like, oh, that, like, I don't know. I hate that feeling. We all know that feeling, right? And so you don't want to do that for your staff, right? Think of like just what your subconscious is going to be telling you. If every time you hear from your boss for a meeting, you're like, oh no, like that's not good. That's going to have some real negative connotations with your job real quick, right? So, the exact cadence of what works for everybody is going to be different. We had one client who at one point was running a very large facility, big team. And they didn't, sit down and have like formal team meetings, but they all met for coffee Monday through Friday, for 15 minutes before they dispersed, and the instructors got the horses and the stall cleaners started on the stalls and feeding and admin, and that was how they handled it, and that worked for them. And then they also did one-on-one meetings on top of that. I think it's really important to try and have a mix of one-on-one and all team meetings, because if we're all working at a farm and I never see Annalise, and she does something and forgets to fill a water bucket or lets a horse out or whatever, right? It's a horse farm, things happen. I'm thinking like, oh God, what's that girl's problem? Like, she's not ever here. She, if we don't cross paths. But if we're in meetings and I know that she cares about her job and I know that she's trying to do a good job, like, I'm going to think like, oh, I wonder if the horse knocked a bucket over. I wonder if there's a snap that needs to get fixed on that gate. Like, it's more of a team mindset, and I'm not thinking like, uh-oh, she did something wrong. I'm thinking like, oh, I wonder what went wrong. How can we fix it? Which is the mindset you want your team to have, right? And like, taking another step back, talking about getting a general manager position in place, or getting a riding school director type position in place. The idea is that you're stepping back from being in your business so much, and you're getting the time back to work on your business more. And so with that, you want to start to cut down on your meetings, right? So that we're not at every single meeting with every single staff member. The idea is that you're getting that general manager in place who can then, maybe meet with each of the instructors one-on-one. That may be the same person, it may be a different person as, whoever's working with the barn crew and really the hands-on horse care crowd. And then you're just meeting with those people who are meeting with the rest of your team. So you're having, 2 or 3 meetings a week instead of, however many staff members you have total. And most of the time that can be a hard step for people, because it's like, okay, I'm really empowering my staff members to problem solve if something comes up or if there's something wrong, right? And as a staff member, that can be a little bit of a hard step to take as well, because you're like, oh my God, I really don't want to screw up their business. What if this isn't what they want me to do? But that's again where that communication comes in, and maybe the first few times it's, oh, let me run this by you before I make this decision. Then over time it's like, yeah, just do whatever you think is best, it's fine. Like, I know you, I know you're not just gonna make a stupid decision, just have a reason for it, right? So I think it's important to meet with your staff regularly, and then when those issues do come up, you can all just kind of problem solve and kind of get through it together, and keep your staff, keep your employees excited about your business, and have a way that when they notice something going awry or not running smoothly, that they're comfortable to come say, hey, like, this has been a little bit of a problem, or I'm not sure, how to do this. I think one thing that helps in that transition is, don't just come to me with a problem, come to me with a problem and a potential solution. So I don't want you to just dump like, hey, the stalls aren't getting cleaned on Tuesday mornings, right? Like, don't just tell me that. Hey, the stalls aren't getting cleaned on Tuesday mornings. I kind of thought that, we could ask so-and-so if they wanted extra hours, or we've got camp that week, so why don't we have the kids do it? Or, come with a solution, and then we can problem solve. And then the next time you're going to know if, you're on the right track or maybe not the right track for that kind of stuff too. And make sure that, they know that your staff members know that their voice is being heard, right? Because if you say something a few times and your boss is like, yeah, okay, and then nothing happens, it's very much like, well, I kind of don't want to bring anything up anymore. Like, why am I bringing things up if you're never gonna do anything, you know? And sometimes there's pie in the sky ideas where it's like, I think we should get a second indoor. It's like, okay, great. Like, don't hold your breath. But, you know, but sometimes
one indoor.
Or one indoor, true. But they know you're trying. They know that was in discussion, right?
Yes, absolutely. So much discussion for so many years.
So, you know, but sometimes there is something like, hey, I was thinking if we start lessons a half hour earlier in the summer, then, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah can happen. You know, we can do camp and lessons if we do it that way, or, you know, whatever might be coming up. So there's things that you can fix. And, you know, and keeping people engaged. Like, one of the things that Brian's really good about is telling us, like, hey, I was thinking about this, you know, or hey, I'm kind of wanting to go in this direction, or I've been playing around with this or that. And it's, you know, it keeps things from getting stale and getting tired. So I always say, like, share with your staff. You know, you don't have to give them, you know, the keys to the bank vault, but I think it's really good to be able to share with people and, you know, let them know what you're thinking about, what you want to do, you know, where you're trying to get to. Like, if you're in a place where you're trying to start to take a step back from running everything day to day, like, tell them that, right? You know, you don't want to be as involved in all of this, or as involved in teaching all the lessons or answering emails or whatever it may be. Yeah, so maybe we can go around and just kind of share, like, something that you, as either an employer or an employee, you know, what do you think is something that you guys do well in working with your staff or being a staff member, in the way that dynamic works? And I feel like we picked on Liz all morning, so let's start over here and start with Sequoia.